Welcome back, GRD 132, Typography 1, to our web type exercise that we're working on. This is ex12. And again, this is part 3. And what we're going to do in this part is just go over Google Fonts and how to link to them. And we have to link to them because they're not on people's systems. People are going to be using them from the web. So we can specify them in our CSS, but we have to have a link to them so that when they're on the web, they can pull those fonts in and use them when the page is displayed. So what I'm going to do first is just go back to replit, and remember I could open up my repel that I was working on. I could go to my repels and just scroll down, and there it is, 12 web type HOMA R. I wanted to open this up from the beginning just to see how to do that, and it's opening up the way I left it with this window over here kind of closed up, and that's fine. And I'll just move this over here. Remember, having this over here, the important thing about it is that you have this button so you can open it in a new tab. So if you close that tab, you have this here. So that's what it looks like. This is already showing up in Crimson Pro, but I want to link to it from the Google Fonts site, even though I have it on my system so that anybody could see it in the right way. And then we're going to use Roboto. Right now it's using Calibri. We're going to put Roboto first as the first choice. And then if someone can't use Roboto, it'll use Calibri as a backup. So we're going to go back to replit, and I'll move this over. And I'll go down and I'll just show once again, I put in the fonts that I'm going to use, but if we don't have Roboto or we don't have access to it, it's just going to ignore that and go on to Calibri. And again, if it doesn't have Calibri, it'll use Arial. If it doesn't have Arial, it'll use whatever sans serif is default on that person's system when they view it on the web. So we're all set up to use Roboto, and we're all set up to use Crimson Pro, and we put quotes in for Google Fonts typically just to indicate that they're Google Fonts. We also use quotes for anything that has spaces in it, like Times New Roman. So we already have the fonts specified, and what we're going to do now is just link to them. So that shouldn't be that hard. So I'm going to go to a new tab here, and I'll just search Google Fonts. It's fairly easy to use. And I'll browse fonts. We've used this before. And here's Roboto right here. So I could go right to Roboto, but if you needed to search, you can search sans serif for Roboto, and you could have typed in Roboto. So I'll do that first, just in case you had to do that. That'll be the only one now. And I just want Roboto, and I want the sans serif. I don't want condensed or anything else right now. So I'm going to click on that. And here's all the different styles. They have a thin, they have a light. We're going to use the basic, they go by numbers, by weight numbers, and 400 is usually regular, and anything lighter than that is usually a lighter number, and anything heavier, bold is usually 700, and then extra bold is usually 800, 900, and so on. So some of these typefaces have a lot of different weights to them, as does Roboto. So I'm just going to choose the ones I want. So I know I'll use regular, and this thing comes out, and that basically adds them because we're going to take this code here. And in case I need italic, I'm going to select italic, and I'm not going to worry about medium right now. I am going to select bold, and just in case I need bold italic, I'll select that. And just in case I need black, like a real heavy headline kind of font, I'll select that as well. That'll be available to me. And you don't have to do anything here yet. And then I'll go back up, or just go back here to Google Fonts, and now I'll search for Crimson Pro. And I'll just put in Crimson, and nothing will come up because I have sans serif checked. So I'm going to put in serif, and here's Crimson Pro. So I'll just click on it. And again, I'm just going to use the 400. I'm going to use the regular, and I'll use italic just in case I need it. And I'm going to select the bold. And I don't know if I'll need bold italic, but I'll select it. And then just like Roboto, I'm going to select an extra bold just in case I need it. You don't want to load up everything, but you want to have a nice selection that you can use. And again, you're using these by weights. So you specify weight not as bold, but as 400 would be regular and 700 would be bold. So here's what I've selected. Here's my Roboto fonts that I selected. You could remove any. You could remove all if you want to start over again. And here's the Crimson Pro that I have. Now that I have these, what you can do is go down here. Now, this is important. Watch this. I don't want to use link. I don't want to put it in my HTML page. I actually want to put it in my CSS page. Now, it does show style tags here. That means it would go in an HTML page, but we can put it in our CSS page. So all that you need to copy, you don't even need this. That's just showing you how to specify the fonts, which we already do. We already did that. It's just like that. So that's not a big deal. We don't need to copy that. We know how to do that already. But what we're going to copy is everything from @import to the semicolon at the end, and that's going to go right in our CSS file. So don't worry about these style tags. Don't worry about them. Just copy this. So I'll do a Command C or Control C, and I'll go back here. And usually you put this at the top. So in front of body here, I'm going to hit return, and I'll hit 2 returns, and then I'll go here and I'll paste it. And that's what it looks like. And you don't have to look through all this, but it basically has the font and all the different weights that you need available. So that way, if you need to use a Crimson Pro bold, you can put in weight 700. Now, since we're using an H1, you may not have to do it, but it doesn't hurt to do it. So right down here for my H1, I'm going to put in font weight. That's how you put in the weight of bold or the number. So I'm going to do font weight, and you can see right when I put the colon, it's asking me for numbers. Let me do that again, or it was. And I'm going to put in 700, which is the typical bold weight. So I'm going to use 700. And I could even use heavier if I want to try the 900, because I do have 900 available in Crimson Pro, I believe. Or no, 800. Looks like I have 800. So if you wanted to go 800, you could try that out. It's going to look very similar. It's not going to look a whole lot different, but I could try the 800. And Roboto is just going to go in the regular. If you don't specify, it'll default to 400. You don't have to put 400, but if you did have like 300 and 400 and all different ones, then you'd want to specify that. But without putting a bold in there, it will use the 400 as a default. So our font should be fine. So I'm going to go here and preview it, and that way you could kind of see the change in real time. So let's refresh it. And there it is. Now, you didn't see a lot happen here because they were both sans serifs. They were very similar. And here's my headline. And that's now a little bit heavier. It showed up. So if you wanted to make it a little bit bigger, there's my Figma. I don't want to go there. I'm going to go here. If you wanted to make it a little bit bigger, I might make it like 38. So I'll go here and make it 38. I'll even try 40. Let's see what that looks like. That might be too big. And I'll go here and refresh it. And that actually looks good. So at 40, that looks good. And everything else that we have with the H2 is Roboto. I didn't put in bold for Roboto, but H2 automatically does a bold. If you wanted it any heavier, you could put it in, but it'll use the 700 because it's an H2. So it's already doing that. And for the body copy, we're using Roboto. That should be fine. So that's all you should need for this. There's our styles. There's our index HTML. This is the way it should look when you're finished. That's all you should have to do. And that's all we're going to do for this first assignment. So when you're done, just copy this, Command C or Control C, copy this. Or actually what's better would be to copy this. Just go to your index and copy this, because this will show me your final page, and I could look at your final page at any point, but I'd rather see your code. So if you go here, I'll see your code first. So do this, copy your index one. And if you did the other one, it's no big deal because each one does have your username in it. So I will see your username, so it's not a big deal, but I would prefer that you highlight the code one. So highlight the code one, copy it, and then go back to MyWarren and go to coursework and look for ex12, which should be under Unit 9. And there it is. Now, you're not going to use this link. That's the Figma link. You're going to go into the assignment itself like we typically do, and go down to add comment and add a link. Paste your replit link. It should look like that. Make sure you open it in a new window. That helps. Then I don't have to go back and forth from MyWarren when I'm doing grades, and I'll hit save. And that's what it should look like. And that's all you have to turn in. You don't even have to give me a Figma link. There's no reason to do that. That's really for your own reference to see what things look like. So you don't have to send me a Figma link. You just have to send me your Replit link. And we're going to do some more in Replit. So we're going to do some more design work and some more CSS work. But this was kind of an introduction. Hopefully it wasn't that hard. I mean, we just did a headline, a subheadline, and some body copy. So hopefully that wasn't that hard. But if you're new to working in a code editor or writing CSS, anything like that, you know, it's a little bit different, but you're still just designing. So in the end, you're just designing and trying to make something readable and unified in terms of its color and that it has contrast and all those qualities that make for readability. So that's what we're doing here. We're just doing it for the web instead of on a piece of paper. So there's some differences between the web and print. You know, we're using body copy for sans serif that we'll use a little bit more on the web than we will for print. Otherwise, you know, it's still short line lengths. We're spreading out our line spacing or our line height. We're putting space between paragraphs, and we're using nice contrast. We're contrasting different typefaces, and that's about it. So when you're done, that's it. So in coursework, I should just see your link there, and that's the end of ex12. So we're going to do a couple more assignments in replit when we work with the web a little bit, so you can work with making columns and also doing responsive web design so that it changes. Because remember, it's not always going to look like this. You're going to have something that changes, as something gets smaller or as it's viewed on a mobile device. So that may change things a little bit as well. So we have to be ready for that with typography.